Okay. Okay, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, wherever you may be. I'm Jay Remley, and I'm on the board of directors for the Lupus Foundation. And this is our second office hours with Dr. Parsa. And I'm proud to have Dr. Parsa here to answer questions around COVID-19 and lupus and the latest lupus research. Last time we talked a little bit about preventive measures of lupus and things you can do in the time we're in now with COVID-19. Today we had a few questions that came in since our last office hours with Dr. Parsa a couple weeks ago. So we'll start with that. And then I'm gonna jump into the latest research that came out of the Lupus Research Alliance earlier this week with lupus patients. And we'll discuss that and then talk about Plaquenil. I know that's top of mind for everybody. We continue to get questions around availability of Plaquenil for lupus patients. And then we'll also open it up for any questions Q&A. So if you're watching us live here on YouTube, feel free to ask questions through the YouTube chat, and those questions will come through and we'll answer those at the end as well. And so we'll try to get through this in 30 to 40 minutes, but the more questions that come in, we definitely want to make sure we get those answered for you. And if for whatever reason we don't get them answered, or you think of something afterwards, feel free to always get in touch with us here at the Lupus Foundation. Just behind me here, communications@lfnc.org. You can email your questions there during our office hours right now. Or again, like I said, you can put it through the chat there on YouTube, on our YouTube live channel. Also, up above here, we have on the Lupus website, lfnc.org/COVID-19. You can find the latest information about lupus and COVID-19 and research that we're coming across, as well as the latest news. So with that, why don't we jump in? I want to personally welcome here again, Dr. Parsa. Thank you for all you do for the Lupus Foundation, and thanks again for being part of our office hours here with Dr. Parsa here on YouTube. So welcome and thank you.
Thank you for just accommodating, and supervising the whole things to just make this happen for our patients and our audiences here. Would you please just repeat the first question from the last sessions that, people know? I would appreciate it. Thanks so much, Jay.
Yeah, so let me start with that. So a question came through, like I said, since our last office hours, and it is, one potential side effect of Plaquenil is heart arrhythmia. Are there certain underlying conditions that would make a patient more predisposed to arrhythmia from Plaquenil?
That's a very good question. As you know, Plaquenil is an old medicine that been using it, for the rheumatological disease, including rheumatoid arthritis and the lupus and some other rheumatological disease. Generally speaking, anytime that we want to start this medication or some medication in that with some quality with, the same as Plaquenil, what we need to do is we need to obtain, the EKG from the patient, electrocardiogram. And in the electrocardiogram, there is a section under the electrocardiogram, we call it QT. So that we measure that QT. There are people that, that there is a possibility that QT interval or that the length would be longer than the normal population. These people might be at risk if they want to take the Plaquenil. And I'm sure that whoever has been on the Plaquenil, the doctor has already been, checking their EKG and then measure the QT. So generally speaking, not many people have a very long QT on their EKG, but if that's the case.
Hey, Sean, let me pause here. I think I might have to. Let me just 1 second, Sean.
Sure.
Okay. So sorry about that. I don't know if we had a little glitch with YouTube there, Sean, but I wasn't sure if we weren't necessarily broadcasting through to everybody. So we're back on now. So just in
Right.
case people missed it, let
Oh,
me just let me repeat the question for those that we might have missed. So again, the question came through last time since our last office hours was one potential side effect of Plaquenil is heart arrhythmia. Are there certain underlying conditions that would make a patient more predisposed to arrhythmia from Plaquenil?
right. So as we described, so any patients that the physician or the healthcare provider want to just start the Plaquenil for them, it's always recommended to just do the EKG electrocardiogram to check and measure, the electrical activity of the heart. There's a section of this, EKG that what we call it QT, which is the beginning from the Q waves all the way to the end of the T wave. And that measurement is supposed to be less than 470 milliseconds. And then in some patients, but for whatever reason, some congenital problem, the medication that they are already on, some electrolyte changes, that QT might changes. And because of that one, there are more chances of the heart arrhythmia or the bad rhythm of the heart. I'm sure that whoever has been on the Plaquenil, the physician has been already checking the QT and measured it and made sure that the patient has the normal QT, and then for whatever reason it doesn't have the patient didn't have the QT prolongation or being on a medicine that prolonging that QT. Generally speaking, it's a very rare disorder that the QT would be prolonged, but it's always, we're advising all the healthcare provider and physician to check that QT to just make sure everything is fine and starting that one, the QT. Like some of the other medication are also prolonging the QT, like the Z-Pak, which is a very famous antibiotic that we use for the upper respiratory or lower respiratory tract infection. The combination of the Z-Pak and the Plaquenil, it both increasing the QT interval. So before starting any of those, we have to make sure that consulting with the healthcare provider and just let them know that you're on that medication. And then I'm sure that most of the patient have done the EKG before starting the Plaquenil. But as we mentioned, it's a pretty safe medication, and that's one of the rare problem with the Plaquenil. So if you are taking the Plaquenil, you're already fine. There is nothing to be worried about. But just if you want to take another medication, always make sure that you remind the treating doctor that just let them know that you're on Plaquenil for the QT.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Parsa. So why don't we jump into the latest research that was just published earlier this week by the Lupus Research Alliance. We're at the Lupus Foundation here. We're partners with the LRA back in New York, and they recently just shared their first results from the COVID-19 Global Rheumatology Alliance registry. And it really around patients with studying patients with rheumatic disease and diagnosed with COVID-19. So these were all patients that were part of the study that not only had a rheumatic disease, but also were positively diagnosed with COVID-19. And so we thought it might be easier to just share on the screen, my screen here, to walk through this a little bit. And it really around patients with studying patients with rheumatic disease and diagnosed with COVID-19. So these were all patients that were part of the study that not only had a rheumatic disease, but also were positively diagnosed with COVID-19. And so we thought it might be easier to just share on the screen, my screen here. Let's see, can you see this here, Sean?
I do, I can.
So sorry about that. It went over to our YouTube channel there. So as I was mentioning, the the Lupus Research Alliance, LRA, just published their latest research, and it's the worldwide registry. A little bit of an overview was created by leading rheumatologists and researchers with patients with rheumatic diseases to answer really these questions. Here is what they're off to try to answer, which is, which drugs that treat rheumatic diseases such as hydroxychloroquine or Plaquenil and others might be effective against COVID-19. Do medications such as Plaquenil and others put rheumatic disease at more or less risk for COVID-19? And who is at risk for COVID-19? So those were the three questions. And the participants, it was 110 participants. Most of them had more than one rheumatic disease, and they were all diagnosed with COVID-19. And 17% of the patients in this study had lupus. And so not a big study, but at least from a lupus and COVID-19 perspective, it's one of the early studies that we have come across and working with the LRA recently published. And so what are some of their early findings? Let me go through here real quick, Sean. Sorry about that. This is what they found so far. Of those that were with lupus and were diagnosed with COVID-19, 79% of the patients exhibited a fever, 77% had a cough, 50% shortness of breath, 45% myalgia, and 37% of the patients had a sore throat. And so if you recall from if you were on our last office hours, Dr. Parsa talked about, for sure, the leading symptoms. This is consistent as far as, fever, shortness of breath are definitely things with respiratory challenges. They're definitely things with symptoms of COVID-19. But given these early results, Dr. Parsa, just a question here for you. How do you see these results from your experience comparing to the general public of COVID-19 patients that have tested positive that you've seen?
So first of all, I'm glad that, most, researches and papers are coming out, and we're expecting more of the information that we're getting about the lupus patient, autoimmune disease patient with during the time of the COVID, and they're all going to be published. This part, was very interesting that you see that, of course, it's not a very large population, but, the number of the patient they have looked at, 79%, we call it 80% of the people just presenting with the fever, which is, when you look at the up-to-date, which is from the normal patient, we're getting almost 99% of the people have the fever. So this might be explaining, there is two possibilities we can hypothetically looking at it. Possibility number one is because most of the patients of the autoimmune disease, they're currently taking some medication, immunosuppressant, and some of the medication just might, changing the frequency of the fever due to either making the immune system being more stabilized, or we call it masking the fever. So that might be the reason for that. We're still not sure if the autoimmune diseases, if you look at this, there is a website by the name of the UpToDate. UpToDate is the most clinical evidence-based, medicine resources that would be updated almost every day for the COVID. Generally speaking, for the other disease, they're changing it every 3 months. But for the purpose of the COVID, they're changing it every day because every single day we're getting a lot of information papers from all over the world. I looked at, at the UpToDate, yesterday, the fever is still being reported of the 99%. So either it's telling us, the medication they're, the immunocompromised patient taking, maybe changing this number and not letting them all having the fever, or just masking the fever. But, among the people in the high risk for the COVID, autoimmune disease hasn't been considered as a high risk so far based on the information that we have. Of course, it's still preliminary. There still need more time to evaluate and extrapolate, the information from all these research studies. But no study so far has shown the autoimmune disorder patients are at higher risk for the COVID, or because they're taking Plaquenil, some group of them are more protected. There would be some more time to just, get to those answers with more studies and the clinical, randomized clinical trials to just know the answer. But so far, the good news is we don't have anything indicating that the autoimmune disorder patients are at higher risk or a risk factor for having the COVID, which is a good news so far. But we cannot, conclude or just making a lot of power on this report so far. But we'll wait to see what's coming up, later from the studies.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Parsa.
Yeah.
And are you aware of any other, actually, before I jump to the next question, for those that are on YouTube and watching live, feel free to ask any questions through the YouTube channel, and we'll get to those questions here shortly. And then also any questions, if you want to email them, communications@lfnc.org. So any other research that you're hearing, Dr. Parsa? I know when we spoke a couple weeks ago in the office hours, you're involved with, physicians in Europe, Asia, the Middle East. Anything you're hearing outside of the U.S.? And I will say that this study, these 110 patients with this LRA, were from 6 different countries. So this was a broad research, from a geographic point of view. And hopefully this next phase, we have more patients come in to do this next phase of the study, and we have more of a sample beyond this initial 110 patients. But any other broad research that you're aware of around COVID-19, whether it's with a lupus or another type of rheumatic disease or autoimmune disease?
Again, if there is they're working on it. It hasn't been published yet, but there was one from the Italy, there was one from from the Czech, there was several of them from China, from the Middle East. I looked at all of those. I also talked to several of these dermatologists, which I was expecting that their floor would be just being fully packed with all these autoimmune disorders during the COVID, especially in some of the countries that they were not following all the quarantine, law and regulations very serious. But interestingly, they were saying they didn't see even any of their patient having any recurrence or relapses during this. Again, there's still, I don't want to just give a lot of, hope without having a lot of evidence behind it. But so far, everything is not showing the autoimmune disorder patients are at higher risk for this. However, until we know or go to the bottom of this, I would recommend all of the patient to just continue, go with the fully obedient with all the social distancing and personal, make sure that they're wearing the gloves and mask and have, all those things following it. Continue taking all the great, supplements, which is good for your body anyway. And just continue with all of this until we have more information to just, be talking more scientifically to what we're dealing with. But so far, there is no obvious, studies showing that we are at risk. And even, the risk factor for that one is the obesity, old age, COPD, renal failure, diabetes, and the hypertension. And, I was reading, the up-to-date yesterday, and it mentioned so far, there is nothing indicating that autoimmune disease patients is a risk factor for this one. But again, it is preliminary. They still need to just wait and to just get all the stronger, studies coming from different countries to see what you're dealing with. But, so far, we shouldn't be worried. But continue all the great things that you have been doing, including, again, the good nutrition. Make sure you get a good sleep, hydrate yourself really well. Make sure you go outside and then do some regular exercise, get the cardio if you feel like it. And then make sure, while you're doing that, of course, make sure that you're having the mask on and social distancing and all the great stuff.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Parsa. So just one of the other things that comes up is on Plaquenil availability. It's been a challenge, for a lot of lupus patients, and we've done our research here at the Lupus Foundation and wanted to share these resources with you. And these are locations, here in the Bay Area as well as online that have Plaquenil available. So if you're not able to find it at your local pharmacy or your primary pharmacy, the Wellness Pharmacy in Los Gatos, here's the information and the address and phone number. It's right at Highway 85 and Los Gatos Boulevard. And then Valor Compounding Pharmacy in Berkeley, just as of yesterday and the day before when we were contacting them, they have stock of Plaquenil. And then also online, and we talked about this in the last office hours, Honeybee Health Online, when we checked most recently, they still had it as well. And so if you're having trouble, getting your Plaquenil, try these. If you have any other, questions or are having trouble beyond those, here's some additional resources we wanted to share with you. If you want to learn more about Dr. Parsa, lfnc.org/Dr. Parsa. You can also go to our website /COVID-19. And also, if you want to actually just have a one-on-one office hour or office time to book an appointment with Dr. Parsa, you can go to www.loophealth.com, or you can also contact Dr. Parsa at seanparsa@lfnc.org. So feel free to, reach out. Wanted to make sure you had these resources at your disposal. And any questions, you can always contact us at communications@lfnc.org. And so I'm going to stop sharing here, and a few questions. Sean, one thing, you had touched on it there briefly, and we talked about it a little bit in the last office hours, as far as what can patients do to, strengthen their immune system, and specifically, with COVID-19 being a respiratory type virus. What are some supplements or vitamins that, could help if patients don't have their blood work, most recently, and they're not sure of certain levels of vitamins that they're obtaining naturally through their diet? What are some preventive, types of supplements they could take or that you would recommend?
Sure. The general recommendation for everyone, including the lupus patient and other autoimmune disorder, is make sure they have a balanced diet with the high protein. Protein is the fundamental part of the immune system, like all the antibodies, the function of all the white blood cells, complement system, everything is dependent, and all the enzymatic activities in the body. We just needed the protein, so we need to just provide at least based on the weight, be above the 60 grams of the protein daily. I would recommend just go somewhere between the 80 to 100 grams of the protein daily. Sometime make sure that you can calculate how much protein your diet has. If you're not sure, or if you're not taking enough of the protein, I would recommend to find a good source of the plant-derived, the protein, organic, preferably. Make sure it doesn't have any gluten. Make sure that doesn't have any lactose if you're allergic to the lactose. Make sure that, and then take between the 60 to 80 grams of the protein daily through that one. And also make sure that your diet is balanced, has everything in it. I highly recommend most of my patients have 1 or 2 eggs per day if you don't have any egg allergy, of course. Number 2 is make sure you hydrate yourself really well. As you know that, all the metabolism in the body producing, a lot of acids, a lot of byproducts, that all needs to be flushed out through the body. So hydration is the key here. And we want to make sure that everyone taking the, enough of the fluid. As you remember that we talked about it. One of the good indication of that you're well hydrated is look at the color of the urine. If it is clear as water, it means that you're well hydrated. Otherwise, you need to take more of the water. Next is you want to make sure that the patient also get enough supplements. Some studies shown that the lupus patient are prone to just have the low vitamin D, low magnesium, and some other elements, including vitamin C. So I highly recommend to all of my patients, including and mostly the lupus patient, to take one good multivitamins. The reason for the multivitamins, of course, not a studies, supporting, that taking the multivitamin is going to changing anything, because the multivitamin is include the number of the vitamins that we have is a lot, and then it's very difficult to run the study for it. But I think the rationale behind it is there's some of the vitamins and the trace elements, we don't have enough storage in our body, and we need to use it on a daily basis. Otherwise, we're going to be deficient relatively for that one. So putting that rationale over there, I think it makes sense to have a non-GMO, organic, good source of the multivitamin that has all the trace elements. And magnesium. Magnesium has a tremendous amount of the job that it does in the body, including the absorption of the vitamin D. It's been observed that the people who has low vitamin D, if they're taking magnesium, the magnesium is helping and assisting the vitamin D to be absorbed. And also magnesium is good for the muscle and also stability of the cell membranes. So I will recommend again, and it's very good for the muscle relaxation and sleep. So most of my patients, and if you're taking also some acid reflux medicine, then you're prone to have the magnesium deficiency. Put that all together, I think would be a great idea for everyone, that taking some magnesium, almost 500 milligram every night, which is going to help the vitamin D to be absorbed better, and also is good for the muscle activity and the rest of the body. All the endocrine system is relying on this as a cofactor for a lot of pathways in the body. And vitamin D deficiency, as we talked last time, it's a pandemic. In our clinic that I've been checking for the last 10 years of the vitamin D, I believe that I've checked more than 500 people vitamin D randomly and for an annual checkup. Above 90% of the people either have insufficient or deficiency of the vitamin D. Even some of them, I've been asking them, they're going outside, they're getting the suntan. We don't know the mechanism exactly why the vitamin D is. So number one thing is when you just get exposed outside to the sunlight, the body would making the vitamin D2, which is not the active or the final part of the vitamin D that is functioning in the body. It needs to be converted to the vitamin D3, and the D3 needs to go through two other processes in the body to become the 1,25 hydroxy vitamin D3, and that's the one that is working in the body. So the bottom line is, for whatever reason, we don't know why the vitamin D is low. Make sure you take 5,000 daily. If you have checked your vitamin D, or your physician has checked your vitamin D in the past and you know the number, send it to me and I'll just come up with the plan for you to how to treat the vitamin D deficiency or insufficiency. Generally speaking, if your vitamin D was above 20, we need to just give you 50,000 on top of the 5,000 that you're taking. But if it's above 20, then 5,000 a day, sometimes 10,000 a day for a month, and then lowering it to the 5,000 a day, it's going to be a good source for the vitamin D. Vitamin D has a lot of function with the immune system. We know that a lot of immune system would have a longer remission and the less frequency of the relapse while they're on vitamin D. Vitamin D is also good for the bone and metabolism. It also has modulating the immune system, and immune system is everything in the body, including cancer and cancer patients, autoimmune patients. They all need that their immune system working harmonically, which vitamin D is the key of doing this. And the vitamin C, we know it's an antioxidant. A lot of things that the virus is doing to the body and harming our body is through the oxidation processes. And then we need to have the vitamin C to get it. One of the things that we observe in some of the studies, the hemoglobin, which is a protein in the body and has carrying the ion inside, would be oxidized to the ion 3+. So vitamin C is one of the things, is also reducing that iron and changing it to the normal iron that has a good affinity with the oxygen. So, and then zinc, we know with the different mechanisms, zinc is a coenzyme with a lot of enzyme that is helping with the body and cleaning and clearing all the oxidation. Bottom line is, these are, like the good recommendation, not even during even the normal hours of life, that there is no COVID. We need to make sure that, our nutrition is everything. Our body is working based on our nutrition. Good nutrition is guaranteed that, we're having the less relapse, having the better quality of life, and be stronger against all the microorganism, and also don't let the autoimmune disease to become reactivated. And on the last part, so we talked about the zinc, we talked about the magnesium, we talked about the vitamin D, we talked about the vitamin C, and on the website you have the dosage of all of those. On top of all of this, I would recommend to take one good multivitamins a day that is non-organic, that is organic and is non-GMO, preferably, and you can find a very reasonable price, in the market for those. And make sure that you're just waking up every day like a normal day, even if you're not going to work, even go take a shower, shave and get ready, because the brain needs to just have some, like the regular, things to follow every day. If you're not following, the brain is going to be lost what's happening in the outside. So we recommend, even if you already got enough, sleeping, just wake up at the regular time, even if you're not supposed to go to work. Take a shower, have a good exercise. 20 minutes cardio is really good. It's just refreshing you. It's just giving you the better energy. Also, clearing a lot of bad cortisol because of the stress and everything, washing this out. And make sure that you have a balanced diet. Watch good movies that inspiring you, making you in a good position. Make sure that you contact, all the family members and the people that you just, make you up. Again, we don't forget, everything about our immune system is our brain. So if your brain and your mind and your psyche is at good and rest, your body is following it. The brain is the king of the kingdom of the body, and it would tell to every single of the cells what they need to do. So make sure the king give a good advice to the rest of the cells. Make sure that they're calm and everything is under control. If there is any problem, as we talked last time, just get a hold of the physician on the telemedicine. Make sure to talk to them, remind them all the details. I'm always, you guys are more than welcome through the LFNC to just, communicating with me. It would be a pleasure and honor to just, talking to you. And if there is anything I can help, I'm always here. And this shall pass too. So let's stay positive.
For sure. No, thank you, Dr. Parsa. I will say, again, anybody, if you have questions, feel free to send those over the chat. And just to add, Dr. Parsa is extremely gracious. And I know a lot of lupus patients out there that whether they've, recently lost their job and healthcare insurance, as well as, or maybe just haven't been able to, obtain health insurance. Dr. Parsa has been gracious as far as to the Lupus Foundation, and anybody that needs medical advice or access to, just to talk to a physician, feel free to reach out to Dr. Parsa, Sean Parsa at lfnc.org, or on that previous slide, you can reach him and book time with him at loophealth.com. And, he's, if you don't have insurance, it's okay. He's mentioned this to me multiple times, and I just wanted to reiterate also to our audience here that, don't stress. As Dr. Parsa said, our mind or our brain is the king of our kingdom or the queen of our kingdom, and don't hesitate to reach out. And if you're not feeling well, don't let it wait till it gets too late with symptoms and so forth. So. Just to kind of summarize there, obviously high protein diet, 60 grams of protein, maybe even 80 grams of protein or more per day. Stay hydrated. Obviously vitamin D3. I've been doing that since you told me about 2 months ago, my 5,000 per day. And it is interesting, as we're all, shelter in place these days and doing these types of interactions, mostly over Zoom. We try to get outside a little bit, but I didn't realize actually sunlight is, vitamin D2 doesn't always translate or actually give us the level of vitamin D, specifically vitamin D3, that we need. Everybody's always said, sitting is the new smoking, as we're all mostly, especially in Silicon Valley, we have office jobs these days and we're not outside as much as we need to be. But good advice there on the vitamin D3. Then obviously magnesium, zinc, and vitamin C. As far as the antioxidants is always helpful. And of course, stay hydrated, get your sleep, your normal healthy diet. Great advice. So,
of course.
Go ahead, Dr.
And meditation and praying is also, it reminded me of a study that was done from the Harvard Medical School, that they just, in the surgical patient, it was not in the non-COVID, area. They saw the people who believe in praying and they were praying, they had a less chance in the surgical patient, less chance of the wound infection. They have a less chance of the complication after the surgery. I don't know how to interpret it. I'm a scientific man, but I believe that faith can do a lot of things that we're not able to explain it, with the current level of the scientific, evidences we have. But just don't forget praying, meditation, and making your mind at ease. Try to just, talking to the people to give you the, positive influence. Make sure just, watching the good movies that, I recommend. I like, sometimes, watching horror movies, but I would recommend not watching those during this time. Try to just get something that make your mind at ease. We have enough stresses in our life, currently, financially, emotionally, psychologically, everything. So we need to give them more positive to our body. And I'm sure that the body is understanding and is following you. And even if, someone getting the COVID, the recovery is going to be much faster with the positive energy and all the good nutrition and everything. So stay positive. We're on the right track. I think our government, the state and the federal has been doing a great job to providing, and it's a lot of job that needed to be done with the ventilator, with the, providing the medication and everything. And I'm almost, getting the briefing every day, and I'm really proud of, that, we're going to the right direction. If you see some of the differences as far as the number, so just know that we are the most transparent, government, giving all of the numbers. So don't jump to the conclusion and say why, the percentage is different. We are the most transparent, as far as the numbers and everything. And that we have the best healthcare system in the world. There is no question about that, because I'm very familiar with all the countries. We are the best. There is no question. Of course, there is room for improvement. We're working on it. And I believe we're going to making a better America after the COVID, and our economy is going to get better. Everything is going to be better. So hang in there. Don't worry.
Great. Well, hey, thank you, Dr. Parsa. And hey, I know you're a scientific man and a science, but I agree with your faith side there comment. And the pure definition of faith is, believing without knowing. So, that's the pure definition of faith. So with that, we don't have any other questions that have come across. I know we promised to try to keep the office hours here to 30 to 40 minutes. We're coming up on 40 minutes. Again, I just want to thank Dr. Parsa for sharing your thoughts and answering the questions with our lupus community and the Lupus Foundation support as always. And again, for our viewers out there, you can always reach out to us at communications@lfnc.org and get more information on our website at up above me here at lfnc.org/COVID-19. So with that, I want to thank you again, Dr. Parsa, and everybody else out there that's viewing our office hours here. And we look forward to seeing you 2 weeks from now. So our plan here is to, have the office hours with Dr. Parsa every other Saturday at 10 a.m. In Pacific time, and look forward to seeing you then. So Dr. Parsa, have a great weekend, and all of our lupus community out there do as well. Stay safe, healthy, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, Jay. I appreciate that.